It's 10 a.m. Friday, June 4th here in Seoul. You're tuned into our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Yoon Jung-min filling in for Kim Mo-kyun. Let's start with the headlines. With South Korea's vaccination campaign seemingly moving into high gear, more vaccines, this time from Janssen, are set to arrive in the nation from the U.S. The U.S. has unveiled its plan to share 80 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines with the international community. However, details have not yet been given on exactly where vaccines will be distributed. And 6 months out from the first inoculation, more than 2 billion vaccines have now been administered to people around the world. South Korea is speeding up its inoculation program to ensure 13 million people get their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in the first half of this year. The country plans to inoculate 9 million people in June, so more vaccines may be needed. For the latest on vaccine shipments, we have our Min Suk-hyun on the line. Suk-hyun, what's the latest?
Well, Chongmin, I have some good news to share. 1 million doses of the Johnson&Johnson vaccine from the U.S. will soon arrive in South Korea. This is according to the country's vaccination task force. The White House also confirmed, saying that the vaccines are being loaded into a plane, which is set to leave Thursday evening, local time. The supply comes after U.S. President Joe Biden pledged to provide COVID-19 vaccines to fully inoculate 550,000 South Korean troops. The vaccines are expected to arrive early Saturday morning. And that's not all. We also have more AstraZeneca vaccines available. 877,000 doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine will be delivered today, the last batch of the UK-made vaccines scheduled to be shipped by June. Friday's supply is part of the 20 million AstraZeneca vaccine doses secured by the South Korean government. With the latest shipment, the country now has about 8.8 million doses of the AstraZeneca shots.
Right, and how is the vaccine rollout going? Are we seeing more people getting vaccinated?
Indeed, hundreds of thousands of South Korean seniors aged 60 to 74 signed up to get shots on the last day of their reservations. Their booking rate was remarkably above 80%. So far, over 7 million people have received their first shots of COVID-19 vaccines, accounting for 13.8% of the total population. While the number of people who have been fully vaccinated stood at 2.2 million, that's about 4.4% of the total population. On Friday, South Korea reported 695 new cases, hovering in the 600s for the third straight day. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Chong-min.
Well, thank you, Suk-hyun, for the updates. The U.S. has been disclosing the first details on how it'll be sharing 80 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines with the international community. But the White House says the U.S. will retain a say on exactly where its donated vaccines are distributed. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden has spoken for the first time about how the U.S. will share 80 million COVID-19 vaccines with the rest of the world. In a statement Thursday, he said 25 million will be first allocated to help others tackle the pandemic. He added that at least 75% of these doses, nearly 19 million, will be shared through COVAX. Among them, approximately 6 million and 7 million will be headed to Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as South and Southeast Asia, respectively. These doses will be a substantial and immediate boost to the lagging COVAX global vaccine sharing program, which has to date shared just 76 million doses with countries in need. President Biden also pointed out that the remaining doses, some 6 million, will be shared directly with countries facing a crisis, other partners, and neighbors. They include countries like Canada, India, and South Korea.
The animating purpose behind that is actually about the protection of American forces and the forces who serve alongside American forces, the Korean troops who are standing shoulder to shoulder with us in that country.
The U.S. also highlighted that the sharing of vaccines is not being done to secure favors or extra concessions, but is rather for the greater good of improving the public health situation and hopefully ending the pandemic. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
More than 2 billion COVID-19 vaccines have now been administered worldwide. The milestone, which was crossed Thursday, came 6 months after the first vaccines started being given. Our Lee Hyun-jung reports.
According to an AFP tally drawn from official sources Thursday, more than 2 billion COVID-19 vaccines have been given across the world. More than 2.1 billion shots have so far been given in 215 countries and territories. The milestone comes just 6 months after the first vaccination campaign began. Israel, which has been the most aggressive in terms of vaccinations, still has the highest number of vaccinated people per capita, with nearly 6 in 10 people fully vaccinated. The data shows 6 out of 10 injections worldwide have been administered in the world's 3 most populous countries: China, with over 704 million doses, the US with over 296 million, and India with 221 million. Nearly 4 of 10 people in the EU have had at least one shot, with Germany leading with 43.6%. AFP reports that only 6 countries have not yet started vaccinating anyone, and that includes North Korea. With over 26 million second doses being administered in the UK, more than half of all adults there have been fully vaccinated. England has fully vaccinated 50.7% of all adults. Scotland is second with 48.2%, followed by Wales and Northern Ireland at 45.9% and 47.1% respectively. The data also shows 75% of all adults in the UK have received at least one dose. Italy is ramping up its vaccination campaign by expanding its age group to those 16 and over from Thursday. Until the latest announcement, Italy's campaign operated on the basis of a person's age, with older age groups and those considered vulnerable given priority. Italy will soon start vaccinating adolescents aged 12 to 15 after the European Medicines Agency authorized the use of the Pfizer vaccine for that age group. Lee Hyun-jung, Arirang News.
The United Nations says providing COVID-19 vaccines to North Korea through the COVAX facility is their priority this year. It added the World Health Organization and UNICEF have been working with the regime's health ministry to develop a vaccine rollout plan as well as other guidelines. The regime is believed not to have begun vaccinating people. The U.S. State Department, however, earlier told VOA that it has no plan for now to share its vaccines with the North. The U.S. is seeing signs of optimism in the job market, with employment figures heading for pre-pandemic levels. The number of jobless claims dropped to 385,000 last week, falling below 400,000 for the first time since the early days of the pandemic. Private job growth also accelerated at its faster pace in nearly a year as companies hired almost 1 million workers in May. With improvements in the labor market and many now being fully vaccinated, the U.S. is taking steps toward resuming normal life. New Jersey plans to close 6 mass vaccination centers by this summer, and the Javits Center, a mega vaccination center in New York, will host the New York International Auto Show this August. Envoys from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations arrived in Myanmar Thursday for talks with the country's military as the post-coup unrest shows little sign of abating. The 4-day meeting is aimed at ending the chaos following February's coup. ASEAN has led diplomatic efforts to try and resolve the crisis, but watchers are questioning the effectiveness of the visit. It comes some 40 days after ASEAN agreed to send envoys to Myanmar during their summit back in April. Tesla's share price continues to fall as reports emerge about the automakers slowing orders in China. The company's stock tumbled more than 5% on the Nasdaq Thursday, closing at $573. That's down 35% from its year high in late January. Tesla shares have fallen for 4 days in a row, fueled by insider report that said orders in China, the company's key market, nearly halved in May from April. Tesla also faces parts shortages, controversy over its recent Bitcoin purchase, as well as recalls that have sparked safety concerns. The COVID-19 pandemic has reshaped the way many of us think about work. For some, it has meant working from home instead of at the office. For others, it has meant taking on multiple jobs to make ends meet. Our Kim Sung-min has more.
Around 6 p.m. when many people head home after work, 30-year-old Kim Soo-jin's day gets even busier. She transforms herself from finance manager into delivery worker. A helmet and a delivery bag are all she needs. It's been roughly 6 months since she started taking on second jobs after she leaves the office. She says the turning point was the pandemic.
COVID-19 left me with a lot of spare time. I couldn't go out to hang out, and I could never work from home before the pandemic. But I started working remotely, just going to work once or twice a week. This became a huge motivation.
She says one advantage of her second job is that she can freely fit her delivery job into any spare moment, no matter where she is.
Having multiple jobs is not that uncommon anymore. In fact, almost half of all office workers in a recent survey said they work more than 2 jobs.
And in the same survey, 80% of those who don't have a second job said they want to start taking multiple jobs. The biggest motivation given by 57% of respondents was extra income. But almost as many people said taking on extra work is not just about the money. 30-year-old office worker, funding developer, online teacher, and YouTuber Lee Hyun-jung completely agrees.
For me, I make a living with my main job and pursue the things that I really want through second jobs. I can achieve self-realization through them, and it's fun to observe different sides of me outside of work.
As more people jump into second jobs, mobile applications that anyone can use to find such work are gaining popularity. Experts say while this multi-job trend has been accelerated by the pandemic, it's already becoming a permanent part of the job market.
The job market is not likely to return completely. Even if our lives get back to normal, some parts will stay non-contact. Also, with fewer chances for unearned income, more people will be aiming to work more for additional income.
The professor added that with this trend, there could be transformation in the job market with contracts diversifying based on the employees' different needs. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
For many basketball players, especially South Korean players, breaking into the NBA is not an easy achievement. But one young Korean player seems set to make a big splash. Our Han Sung-woo tells us more.
For some, basketball's three-point shot is a desperate attempt at a buzzer beater. For Lee Hyun-jung, it's a shot he simply doesn't miss. That's a result of hours in the gym, shooting threes until he can barely raise his arms.
It depends on my condition, but probably like 700 to 1,000. I'm trying to be that guy who works on the on-set hours, like Kobe Bryant, taking like 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000.
In 22 games played during his sophomore season in NCAA Division I basketball, Yi scored 44.2% of shots he took from three-point range. He also averaged 50.8% in field goal percentage and 90% from the free throw line. Had he played a few more games, that would have been good enough to become the 11th member of the NCAA's exclusive 50-40-90 club. His marksmanship has landed him on the South Korean national team, and insiders are wondering when the 20-year-old will enter the NBA draft.
It depends on what the NBA scouts or the team says. If I'm good enough to go out after my junior year, I will go. If not, I'm just going to stay another year. We'll see.
Mock drafts currently have E as a potential second-round pick, a view shared by former Portland Trailblazer and Korea's first ever NBA player, Ha Seung-jin.
He's still sophomore, so I'm aware his draft predictions are low at the moment, but in a few years, I expect them to rise. Even if things don't work out, I think he's at least a future second-round pick.
Rooting for him is not only his mother, 1984 Olympic basketball silver medalist Sung Jung-ah, but also NBA superstar Stephen Curry, a fellow Davidson Wildcat who once gave him some tips on Zoom.
One thing he said was, just enjoy it. Like, as I said, like, if you have haters, just like let them motivate you, and then just don't get a pressure and just enjoy it. That's what he said.
Lee Hyun-jung's hoop dream starts with playing in the NBA, but it doesn't end there. The end goal is to inspire other Korean athletes to aim high, just like him.
We got stereotypes that Asians can't play in the NBA, you know what I'm saying? I just want to say, if you're Asian, like, you don't get, like, you can't jump high or something. So just working on the other stuff, like ball handling like Jeremy Lin, or shooting like me. I don't know, yeah.
한성우, Arirang News.
It is time for the International Modern Dance Festival 2021. The event that happens annually in South Korea offers the chance for visitors to see legends in the field performing moves. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
The longest and largest contemporary dance festival in Korea, the International Modern Dance Festival celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. To mark the occasion, Murafe invited some of Korea's most influential choreographers to create a variety of highlights under the theme all about contemporary dance.
Korea's national dance troupes haven't been gathered all together, so we have prepared the National Evening Program. There is a Women's Evening Program that highlights female choreographers who have been a part of the contemporary dance scene for over 20 years, and an artist-centered stage presenting notable choreographers such as Jeon Mi-suk, An Sung-soo, and An Eun-mi.
The Legend stage includes works from the country's most respected choreographers, such as Jesus Christ Superstar by Yoo Kwan-soon, who introduced modern dance to Korea. These legendary choreographers' shows will be recorded and the footage preserved in the National Archives of Korea. Murafe Collection will present creative shows by some of the top dance troupes in the country right now.
Our show, Silicon Valley, is a collaborative show by Art Project Bora and Israeli choreographer Shahar Binyamini. We dealt with boundaries and relationships between old and new, reality and imagination, and the human and cyber body.
MT Project Afterlife depicts meditation in a form of dance, drawing a self-portrait of ourselves living in a society where our desire leads to fatigue.
Through our show Balance and Imbalance, we try to show how the world is constantly at odds but in balance by showing harmony between the music by Samulnori, traditional percussion quartet, and dancers.
The festival runs until June 13th at Arco Arts Center, the National Theatre of Korea, and Seogang University Mary Hall. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Welcome. It's time for The World Now, bringing you some of the most interesting news from around the globe. I'm Ji-young. Greece is taking steps toward a greener future by turning one of its islands smart and sustainable. The country's government is conducting a project on the island of Astypalia, home to some 1,300 residents, in an aim to eventually go carbon-free. The small island received 8 electric cars from Volkswagen on Wednesday as replacements for public service vehicles with regular engines. During the handover ceremony, the Greek Prime Minister and Volkswagen's chairman said that the project would be adopted in Europe on a large scale in the coming years and decades.
What we are doing here represents one small but very important cog in our collective effort to solve the world's climate emergency.
Renewable energy infrastructures will also be set up. The island currently depends almost entirely on diesel generators for energy, but is expected to cover more than half of their energy need for renewable energy by 2023, rising to more than 80% by 2026. Lady Liberty in New York is to get a new sister. A French museum is set to send a replica of the Statue of Liberty to the U.S. to rekindle their friendship. This is the second time France is sending a statue, 135 years after the first iconic sculpture was delivered to New York City in 1886. The director of the French museum says the statues are a symbol of the continued relationship.
And so you have two sculptures that both symbolize French-American friendship and the liberty of the people. And you see, between 1776 and 1789, which are the years of the French Revolution, there's a 13-year difference. So we really have a common history on the liberty of the people, the desire, the need for liberty.
The replica will depart from the French Museum on Monday and will arrive in New York on the 4th of July, American Independence Day. Then it'll be transported to the French Embassy in Washington, D.C. as part of a 10-year loan around July 14th, France's National Day. The world's biggest Lego football has been created in the hometown of the company to celebrate the European Championships that start June 11th. The giant ball is made out of more than 173,000 classic 2x2 Lego bricks. Employees, including cleaners, designers, play agents, and even the CEO at the Lego house in Billund contributed to making it, and it took them around 150 hours.
It's really great that we've been able to utilize our time during lockdown where we haven't been able to have any guests. Then we had this amazing building activity where we can really turn something into this giant football, and I'm really excited to see it happen.
The football is over 4 meters high and weighs 2.5 tons. People can visit Lego Square to see the ball free of charge until the Euro 2020 final on July 11th.
Good morning. Temperatures have been on a roller coaster for the first week of June. It was just Wednesday when many regions saw their hottest temperatures of the season. Then yesterday, Daegu and many southern regions saw highs below 20 degrees Celsius. Well, it should be much warmer today for the south, but afternoon highs will not rise that much for the capital region. But overall highs will still be below the seasonal norms across much of the country, and Gwangju and Busan will be hitting at 25 degrees. But we have sunny skies nationwide. So do expect very strong UV rays across much of the country, while Jeollanam-do province will have high ozone levels during the day. Decent air quality nationwide, while the East Coast will notice strong gusts. But the weather looks promising for the Memorial Day weekend, while southern regions could see passing rain on Sunday. Then summer heat moves in next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Goodbye.